Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. In this video, we are looking at the Week 5 NFL First Look picks, so let's get into it. We only have a 12-game slate this Sunday, so one game less than last couple of weeks, so that will make some of the ownership a little bit more condensed, but let's get into it. As always, if you guys enjoy the videos, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Looking at the quarterback positions, we have Kyler Murray is $8,000. He's going up against San Fran. He's coming off of a win against the Rams. They were an underdog heading into that game and ended up coming out with a pretty convincing win by 17 points. Murray played great. He looked to utilize his rushing a little bit more, had his highest total on the ground with 39 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns. Just in the case for MVP so far this season, is doing a lot for his team. Still undefeated are the Cardinals. He's 8,000. He's at home, so he looks fine if you wanted to pay up. But I think I'd like to go a little bit cheaper when when he's the most expensive quarterback by $600. You're definitely paying a little bit extra to get to the top. It's not like you have a bunch of guys that are above 75. It's basically just Kyler Murray. So it'd be different. I think you can play him, but for like any sort of cash game, I think you probably want to go a little bit cheaper. We have Tom Brady against Miami. He looked a little bit struggled on the showdown on Sunday night. He was a rainy day, missed a couple of throws. He's 74. His price tag continues to increase. I just don't really like paying this much for a quarterback that's not going to get me anything with the legs. So for me, I will pass on this price tag on Tom Brady. Going down a little bit further, you have Jalen Hurts. He's 7,000. He continues to be a nice fantasy quarterback. A lot of people rostered him last week. Another solid game for him. 47 yards on the ground, a couple of touchdown passes, threw for almost 400 yards. So not only does he have a chance to throw for 300 plus yards, but he can also run for a bunch. It's against Carolina, who defense did look a lot worse than we thought against Dallas, but basically they haven't faced a ton of good offenses so far besides that team. So I think against Philly, they're at home. I still would look to Jalen Hurts just because he gives you so much upside with the legs. Darnold is now up to 66, so he was a great bargain at 6,000 last week. I think I would probably pass on that price tag, although he's been doing great with the legs. For some reason, he has 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. I kind of like Herbert more than Darnold. He looked great once again against the Raiders. It's a matchup against Cleveland, which has played well defensively, but Herbert at home with that offense, they're going to continue to move the football against any team. So I'm not too worried about that matchup, and the price tag isn't the worst on Herbert. If you wanted to go even further down, you have guys like Derek Carr at 61. He struggled mightily in the first half. He got it going a bit in the second half, but it was a little bit too late. The matchup isn't the best against Chicago in terms of just being a high-scoring game and just moving the football all over the place. So he's a fine option, but I would probably prefer to go a little bit cheaper. Daniel Jones, been one of the better fantasy quarterbacks this season, even though he's only thrown for 4 touchdown passes because he's been running a lot. Has a couple of rushing touchdowns on the season. The matchup against Dallas should be a solid divisional rival and should be a solid, pretty high-scoring type of game if New York can stay in it. Hopefully with Saquon they can. Then we're getting into the sub 5K range where Heineke played great last week. Is going up against Saints. Potential option. But you have Trey Lance here. Garoppolo, they said he's not... he's going to be evaluated Wednesday. Garoppolo himself said that he might miss a few weeks, and Shanahan did say that he's not ready to rule out Garoppolo. But assuming that Garoppolo is not able to play, I think a lot of people will be firing up some Trey Lance on Sunday, and I kind of find myself in the same boat right now because you're not only getting a very talented quarterback, or potential really talented quarterback. We haven't seen much out of him yet, but whatever we have seen, he's looked pretty solid out there. You're getting a guy that can get out there and run the football a lot. They utilize him a lot inside the Reds. Well, they utilize him a couple times inside the 10 to rush for a touchdown. He threw for a touchdown pass in week 1. And if he plays and starts the whole game, he put up 20 fantasy points basically in 2 quarters. Gives you a bunch of upside with the legs. And the matchup here should be a high-scoring game against Arizona. So I really like Trey Lance. You can definitely pair him with a main weapon in Deebo Samuel, who we'll get to. But Trey Lance at that price tag, I'll have interest if there's no Garoppolo. And then further down here, it's nothing crazy that interesting to me. Maybe you can look to like Fields if there's no Andy Dalton, but it's not that thrilled. I'd rather go up to Trey Lance. At the running back position, you have Derrick Henry at 9,000. McCaffrey's probably doubtful for Sunday. We'll see if he's in or not, but pretty quick recovery from a hamstring if he's able to suit up on Sunday. Kamara had no targets on Sunday, so his role is completely different this year. It's not really much of a question anymore. Last year with Drew Brees, and years past with 2 years ago with Drew Brees, he was getting a bunch of targets. Even last year, he was getting a good amount of targets with Taysom Hill. But this year, with Winston, he's just not really getting the same amount of targets. He's getting a lot of carries, but you wish he'd be utilized a lot more on the receiving game. Eckler had a big game last night. He's going to be probably popular, even though the matchup isn't the best against Cleveland. He's $7,600. He looks like a good option. Saquon's been looking a lot better. He's fine at 73. Elliott's been beasting 7,000. He's definitely in consideration. Joe Mixon might be able to suit up on Sunday, so that would be a nice play if he is. He's $6,200. So we'll see. Okay. Oh, originally they said he was week to week. If not playing, then you have Samaje Perine, who's only $4,000. He would be a nice value option. You would assume you absorb most of the first and second down work, even some third down work. Decent pass catcher. Other option at running back here, we have an injury to David Montgomery. Should miss at least, they said 4 to 5 weeks. So you're going to have Damian Williams benefit. Former KC Chief, he should get a lot of the work. They don't really have anybody to back up Damian Williams. At least not somebody they're probably going to give a lot of snaps to. Looking at their depth chart without David Montgomery, you're basically looking at Damian Williams, and then you have Herbert, who's barely played until Tariq Cohen is back. They just don't really have very many options here. So I could see Herbert get a few snaps, but I think Williams not only going to be out there on the field most of the first and second down, but could see a nice 3-down work against a Raiders defense that has given up a lot of yards to running backs this year, and he's also a very good pass catcher, so you can get probably 5 to 6 targets, and that's more than enough at $5,600. They already did price him up a little bit, but I think it's still a good value play for a good running back when he's given opportunities. So right now, Lance, we have Damian Williams in here. The other running back that I like, who is pretty affordable, you have a number of options to look at. You can maybe go back to DeAndre Swift. Of course, the 2 times I've played Swift this year, the 2 times that he's dropped under 10 fantasy points, or 10 and 11 and 0.8. The 2 times that he went for north of 23, he was not in my lineup. Last week, it was a struggle for him. He got only 8 carries, which is something typical, like 8 to 14 you'd expect from him. But the targets were there, but just not a lot of big plays, and that offense moved the football, but they couldn't punch it into the end zone, which was frustrating if you rostered DeAndre Swift or any, Hawkinson maybe at tight end. Other options that are below $6,000 here, you have Kareem Hunt, who's really benefited without Jarvis Landry the last few weeks, being on the field a little bit more and passing down work. He's done a lot better in terms of getting into the end zone than Nick Chubb. I don't know if that is something that's sustainable. We know Chubb has a knack for the goal line carries, and he's not going to catch a lot of passes, so his floor might not be the highest most weeks, but in this matchup against the Chargers, who have just been getting really giving up some big games to running backs, last night it wasn't much from Josh Jacobs because they were trailing very quickly, and Derek Carr couldn't move the football in the first half, so they were down 3 touchdowns heading into the second half, and they couldn't really stick with the running game much, and Jacobs was banged up. But I think $6,700 for Nick Chubb, you're getting a discount on that price tag. He was north of $7,000 for every single start so far. You're getting about $1,000 discount from what you normally would get out of prime Nick Chubb, and the touchdowns are definitely going to come. He only has only one touchdown since week 2. But I definitely see that going up, and good spot for him to maybe even get multiple touchdowns against the Chargers. So I like getting to Chubb, throwing in Williams here. If you're not looking to break the bank on like a Derrick Henry or a Dalvin Cook, who we'll see because he was in and out in the second half last week. Hopefully he's healthy. If he is, that's a great matchup against Detroit. We'll get a lot more word on his status, if he's a full go or not. By the way, the practice reports look this week. Some cheaper options at running back, besides some of these guys here, are if you're looking for just like pure tournament options, like maybe Myles Gaskin, but really tough matchup against the Bucs. So unless you're playing in tournaments, I wouldn't really look to that. Leonard Fournette looks great at $5,200. If there is no Giovanni Bernard, we saw him benefit immensely last game against the Patriots, where he was on the field on all the third down passing down work. Ronald Jones did get that touchdown away from him, but Leonard Fournette 23 touches. That is great at this sort of price tag. So just make sure Bernard is out before you kind of lock in Fournette across all your lineups. He still would be a fine play if Bernard is in, but it looks way better and a lot safer if he is out. Moving over to wide receiver, the top end, you have Devontae Adams, who was very disappointing on Sunday. He only had 6 grabs for 64 yards. The targets were once again there, so nothing really to fault with the targets, but didn't have 100 yards. It was the Randall Cobb show on Sunday. Jefferson has taken a huge price up to 77. I'm not that fond of that, like him being the second most expensive receiver on a slate where you still have a bunch of other good options. And I probably would take like a $1,100 savings and go down to Adam Thielen, who is consistently getting a ton of targets. We know Kirk Cousins loves to look to Adam Thielen's way inside the red zone, so maybe even if he doesn't get 100 yards, which he's going to have his first 100-yard game very soon. But if he doesn't get 100 yards, he's probably going to have a good chance to get into the end zone because he gets a ton of red zone targets. So I like Thielen's price tag. But if you're playing Trey Lance, you might want to stack him with somebody, and you have Deebo Samuel, who has been making some huge plays so far this year. He has 2 monster touchdowns of over 75 yards already through the first 4 weeks. It's a matchup against Arizona, which should be a competitive, kind of a high-scoring type of game here. Lance looked pretty solid in his time last Sunday, and I think targeting Deebo Samuel, who has 12 targets in 2 out of 4 weeks, 10 on the other one, 8 on the other one, getting even some rushing, to getting the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands, and he's not been disappointing. So I like the Lance to Samuel stack. You can run it back with a DeAndre Hopkins if you want to. He's been probably a little bit more risky this year. They just have a lot of mouths on that offense, and he's been dealing with a little bit of an injury, so he's not been as dominating as we would like and probably drafted him to be if you play season long. Terry McLaurin coming off a huge 2-touchdown performance. He is expensive, but I think he looks great. DJ Moore, once again, just continues to be the favorite target of Sam Darnold. Didn't change at all on Sunday. 2 more touchdowns for him. He had 12 more targets, 8 receptions for the 3rd straight week. Super safe with a bunch of upside. So he's going to get peppered with targets. It's the Eagles secondary. Got carved up by Tyreek Hill, who's much different of a player than Moore. Is more of like a he can make a big play downfield, but he's going to be looking at more intermediate, shorter routes. Mike Williams is 72. He had a quiet game on Monday night, which was kind of surprising considering it was his birthday, and he was on a 5'9" cornerback all game. So that was something I thought they would look to take advantage of. But you have Keenan Allen with 65. I think I would take the savings on Keenan Allen. Heading into this year, Allen was headed more expensive than Mike Williams the first couple of weeks, and that's what you would have expected. But for a guy that's been getting all these targets, the yardage was so bad last night, just 36 yards on 7 catches. The yards after the catch weren't there, but he did drop one that he kind of had to lay out for. It was a tougher catch, but something that he could have made. And also had another drop, which was uncharacteristic, but I like that price tag on him, even though the matchup isn't the best. That offense is going to score multiple touchdowns every single week, no matter who they're going up against. So far, Samuel, Allen, really like those guys at receiver. If you wanted to go to a value option this week, you have some guys like Marvin Jones Jr. should benefit with more targets without DJ Chark, who's out for probably at least a couple months with that fractured ankle. You going even further down here, AJ Green's been making some noise over in Arizona. He looks fine at that price tag at 51, but he's not like super safe. Like I would never feel comfortable playing AJ Green when you have Hopkins, when you have Kirk, when you have Rondale Moore. Connor's been getting 2 touchdowns last couple of weeks. It's just a lot of options in Arizona. But the guy that I do like, who's cheap right now, and I think the price tag is going to increase until DJ Chark is back, and that's Laviska Shenault. He got 7 targets in that most recent game against Cincy on that Thursday night one. Even got a rush on the ground. I missed the 100-yard bonus by 1 yard, but they just don't have any other options at wide receiver besides him and Marvin Jones to get a lot of targets. I think he's due for his first touchdown of the season, so wouldn't be shocked if that happens. And just without DJ Chark, probably we'll be looking at 7 to 10 targets at least heading into this one against Tennessee, who did give up some big plays to Corey Davis and that Jets offense with Zach Wilson looking lethal in the second half. So going with these 6 leaves you with 45-33. Other option at wide receiver, if you're looking to save some more money, you can maybe throw in like a Tim Patrick. Deontay Johnson continues to put up huge performances for the Steelers, even though that offense struggles to move the football. It hasn't really stopped Deontay Johnson at 65. Tough matchup, but he's just going to get a lot of targets from Ben Roethlisberger. And then, maybe you can look to Rondale Moore this week against San Fran if you don't want to pay up for AJ, or if you want to go with the cheaper option compared to AJ Green or compared to Kirk. And then at the bottom, without Valdez-Scantling, Cobb had that big week. Maybe this week it's going to be Allen Lazard, who's only $3,700. He looks pretty fine for me at that price tag. Osborne's stock has kind of come down a little bit. A lot of people would have expected after his first couple of weeks. With all the options, with all the other receivers, with Thielen and Jefferson, he's not going to get 100 yards and multiple touchdown every single week. Moving over to tight end here. No Kelsey on the slate, so you're looking at Darren Waller at 73 against Chicago. The first couple of tight ends have not the best matchups. Well, Kittle's matchup is fine, but he's been dealing with a calf injury and just hasn't been looking great. Maybe he looks better with Trey Lance in there. A guy that maybe will thread the needle a little bit more downfield. So I wouldn't mind getting to Kittle. I probably like Hockenson more than the top 2 guys just based on the matchup against Minnesota. Goddard almost had 2 touchdowns. One got called back from a penalty. He's going up against Carolina. His price tag is up to 51, but he's pretty steady. Going to be utilized in the red zone and can make some big plays. But I think you can go down to like Dalton Schultz against the Giants. With that, how powerful that Cowboys offense has looked, he's going to continue to get some opportunities this year. Mike Gesicki looks appealing. He's benefited the last couple of starts. He wasn't really getting a lot of connection with Tua in the beginning, but the last couple of weeks with Jacoby Brissett, he's looked really good out there. 57 yards on a touchdown, 86 yards on 10 receptions in the previous week against the Raiders. So I like Gesicki. Maybe Hunter Henry at 37. Jared Cook is in the mix as well. Probably not looking to break the bank at tight end this week for Waller, just because I probably like some of these other options, like getting up to at least a couple of expensive wide receivers. And maybe I can get up to Chubb or another expensive running back. At the bottom, maybe you'll see Dan Arnold at $2,900. He might be a lot. You expect him to be more a part of that offense without DJ Chark. And now that he only had a couple of days with the team before that Cincy game, now that he has 10 days, I think you'll get more involved into that offense. And then last but not least, defenses. The Patriots defense, they're expensive, but if you can make it work, I think that is something you might want to take a look at. That Houston offense is so dreadful without Tyrod Taylor. Davis Mills is not the answer, as we saw against the Bills last Sunday. They're at home. That's the only thing I can say positively about this Houston offense. Him and Brandon Cooks is very good wide receiver. But I'd look to the Patriots offense. Our Patriots defense, they are going to be one of the best ones to target. They look way better than the Bucs at a similar price tag, just personally. If you're looking to save a little bit of money, maybe you can go down to the Bears at 32, maybe the Steelers at 33. Let's see if Bridgewater, he left the game. If he's not able to play, then the Steelers look, I assume he'll get cleared, but we'll have to wait and see on that. And then the cheap defenses to look at here, all the way at the bottom, you have the Washington football team. Haven't been playing them at all so far, but the price tag is now at a point where you might want to take a shot. They're at home against Winston, who is prone to some turnovers, and it only takes one big play from a defense to pay off, especially at this price tag. So I think for me, if I'm going to go down, it would be for the Washington football team defense at $2,300. If I'm looking to pay up for the defense, I would probably go all the way up to the Patriots, and then we'll have to wait and see on some of these mid-tier defenses, depending on some injuries. But that is about it for the DraftKings side, at least. Let's jump over to FanDuel. All right, over on FanDuel here, quarterback options. Kyler Murray's 85. Tom Brady's all the way up to 84. I cannot pay that much for Tom Brady when you have running quarterbacks below him, and then Kyler Murray's only $100 above him. So I definitely looked at Dak Prescott over Brady or Jalen Hurts with his rushing upside that he brings every single week. Darnold's price tag is getting up there now. He's 76. He's not going to have multiple rushing touchdowns every single week, even though as much as we like and hope for that to happen. But I'd probably play Herbert over Darnold. I play Herbert over Daniel Jones. Now that price tag has jumped up on FanDuel. Cousins, just based on the matchup, might look appealing if you're looking to stack him with Thielen and Jefferson. But at the bottom here, you have Trey Lance down at $6,900. I'm assuming that he starts in place of Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not been ruled out yet, but I don't think he's going to suit up. You also have Joe Burrow there. He's only $7,000. Nice price tag for him. Moving over to the running backs this week, you have very expensive Derrick Henry at $10,400. Then you have very cheap price tag on Kamara at $86,000. So, you're saving $1,800. You get to Kamara if Dalvin Cook is healthy and practices fully all week and there's no concern. He will look great to get that price tag at $9,000. There's always a risk that he could re-injure that in the middle of the game. And then looking at some of the cheaper options, you have Nick Chubb, $75,000, Eckler at $77,000, Najee Harris is $73,000, and then we're gonna have a very good price tag on Swift is cheap at $6,900. If you just want to get all the $6,900 guys in there, pair Swift with Trey Lance. But going even further down, you have Leonard Fournette at $64,000. You have Williams from the Bears, who's gonna get a ton of work on Sunday in place of, on DraftKings, you have some other pivots, but on FanDuel at that price tag, he's going to be very tough to ignore. And then assuming that, right now we don't know the status of Giovanni Bernard, but if he's not able to suit up, then getting to Leonard Fournette at that $6,400 price tag looks pretty appealing. The Miles Sanders, if you're looking for the ultimate tournament option, he would be that guy. Just at that price tag is very nice. At wide receiver, I'm still looking to pair Trey Lance with Deebo Samuel. I know he's expensive, but it doesn't really matter. A guy that gives you that much upside, to break a slate that they're going to take shots downfield with, and they're going to do whatever they can to get the ball in his hands. So I like him. Jefferson is the second most expensive wide receiver on FanDuel as well. I'd probably go down to Thielen on both sides. I just don't want to pay that much for Jefferson when I can get similar production for cheaper from Adam Thielen. Now, Hopkins is getting to a nice price tag. His price tag has come down. People haven't been rostering him because he hasn't been producing, but at one point he's going to have a big breakout game, probably multiple throughout the season. So at 75, he's definitely worth a shot. Jamar Chase's price tag has risen by immensely. He's played great, but I probably wouldn't play him over Keenan Allen at $7,200. You have Mike Evans, $7K against Miami. That offense is going to put up big points every single week. 6K range, you have Odell, who was very popular and didn't produce on Sunday. You have Marvin Jones Jr. is going to get a lot of work. Let's take a look at Chenault's price tag on FanDuel. He's only $58, so I kind of like this similar approach on both sides. Samuel Chenault is very affordable. He's going to get a lot more involved in that offense. Right at $6,000 you have, or $6,100, you have Allen Robinson. Devontae Smith got over 100 yards for the first time in his career, so he played very well on Sunday. And then other options in the 5K range, besides Laviska Shenault, you're picking between Robbie Anderson, Cobb. Some of these guys aren't that appealing. Fields did hook up with Darnell Mooney for a bunch of nice catches, so he would be somewhat interesting at that price tag. And then all the way at the bottom, you maybe have John Ross for tournament upside, Rondell Moore at only $52. So just some more options there. At tight end, Darren Waller, $74. He's always easier to get to an expensive tight end on FanDuel based on the pricing, so easier to pay up there. Schultz is a lot more expensive than he is on DraftKings, so he looks better on DK, but I like Hawkinson at that price tag, $64. I maybe looked like Dallas Goedert. I like Mike Gesicki at $5,600. And then you have some of the same names that we mentioned over on the DraftKings side, like Jared Cook and Noah Fant against Pittsburgh at $59. But that's mainly it. Like on FanDuel, you're probably going to be paying up for a 5K plus tight end. I don't think you need to punt because you have so much salary to work with. And then defense-wise, the Patriots, $5,000, so they are the most expensive defense on both sides, as you would expect. The Washington football team is only $38, so they're cheap on both sides. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're going to be the two of the most popular defenses as of now. It'd be interesting to see what other news we get on Sunday to kind of make people decide if they want to spend down or spend up at defense. But I'm going to round it out with the same kind of core plays here. Deebo Samuel, Laviska Shenault, and give me Keenan Allen getting a bunch of targets. He's going to have, they're going to go for more yards. It's not impossible that he's going to catch 7 for 30 yards again. But that's about it for the first look. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.